In this next video, we're going to start talking about laying out the guardrail and the guardrail widening. Right now, the template already has guardrail widening in the model, but we're going to go ahead and modify that in the area where the guardrail starts and stops, and we're actually going to take away some of the guardrail widening where we don't need it. So let's take a look at the exercise again. We're on page number 4, step number 17, and in here we have a picture of the standards from Standard Plan 60680, and what we're going to try to do is calculate the length here for this transition for the guardrail widening. And the way we did is we just used the law of sines. We know the distance at the widest point of this guardrail widening. We calculated that to be 7 foot. We do know the angles in here. The one angle is going to be 15 degrees, the other is going to be 75, and with the law of sines, if you plug that in, you can actually calculate that distance from here to the widest point. And if we plug in 7 feet with the sine of 75 over 15, we can come up with a value of 26 feet and some change. So we just basically rounded it up to 30 to be a little more conservative with the taper. Again, a 15 degree or flatter taper, and so 30 will make it a little bit flatter than 15 degrees. Okay. With that information, we're going to go on down, and what we're going to do is we're going to modify our guardrail widening width. Before station 68 plus 70, which is at this location of the guardrail widening width, right where we're going to start our transition, we do not need any guardrail widening. And then from that point, we're going to widen out to 7 feet, and then we're going to come back in to the default width of the guardrail widening. And in this case, that default width is just under 4 foot. Okay. All right. So I'm going to go back to the microstation drawing. You can see our standard default width of the guardrail widening width is in here. Now, that line is a break point between the guardrail widening width and the fill slope, and in some cases you like to see that in the plan view, and right now all I'm seeing is the edge of shoulder here. Here's the edge of pavement, edge of shoulder, but there's no guardrail widening width line, and then the fill slope ends down here at the limits of construction line. Okay, so what we're going to do is I'm going to show you how to, if you want to, this is optional, you can actually turn on that guardrail widening width in the plan view. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look at what type of feature that guardrail widening width line is. So I'm going to go to my template. I'm going to try to open up edit it, and I'm not getting the heads up tools to pop up, so I'm going to hit F4, and I'm going to hit that line again, see if I can get them up. There we go, here they come. I'm going to edit that template drop, and the guardrail widening width line is this one right here, and over on this side right there as well. So if I just double click on that point, I can see that guardrail widening width line is an excess ground proposed. Excess ground proposed is the feature definition. So I'm going to close that down. I'm going to close down the template library, and I'm going to go over to my Project Explorer. I'm going to go into the civil standards. Because the civil standards will have any feature definition that has been used in this DGN file. So I'm going to go ahead and expand that out. And I'm going to go down to Design Standards, Modeling, Template Features, and then Linear. And then in Linear, you'll see that that's where that excess ground proposed is. Now, when you're in this area, what you can do is you can right-click, and you can go to Properties. And when you go to Properties, it'll open up the Element Information dialog here. And I'm going to go ahead and pin that so it stays out there. And we're going to go down to where we can tell it, if we want to draw in the plan view. And so the one that we want is this Linear Default Settings. And where it says Create Template Geometry, you can see that's set to false. And what that'll do is it will actually create the geometry in the 3D model, and then because it's in the 3D model, it will come over and be drawn in the plan view. So I'm going to change that to a true. And again, this what I'm showing you is totally optional, just in case if you want to see that in the DGN file. Now, I turned that to true, but nothing showed up in my plan view. But what we have to do is we have to go ahead and process the corridor. And when you process the corridor, you'll see that that line is now in the plan view because it's also in the model now as well. Okay. Alright, so now what we're going to do is we're going to go back to the manual and we're going to start adding in these parametric constraints. Again, in our template we have a label. It's called guardrail widening width. Okay. Now we're going to do this for both sides of the main line. And so what we could do is we could look in there into the template and look to see if there's just a generic guardrail widening width, because the stationing values, start of the station down to this station, it's the same value for both sides of the roadway. Same thing for this one. Both sides of the roadway are the same, and this one as well. So if we wanted to, we could go into the template library and modify the label to just be a generic guardrail widening width. But I believe if we look in the template, we'll see that there's a left and right, and that's fine because I think later down in the roadway we're going to have to distinguish between the left and right. So let's go ahead and take a quick look into the template and see how these are set up. So I'm going to go to my template. I'm going to go ahead and open up the template, take a look at it. And I'm going to go ahead and click on this point again. And I'm going to look down here at the label, and we do have labels for the left. And if I click on the other one, that'd be a label for the right. Okay. So when we set these parametric constraints, we're going to have to do it for the left and right. So we're going to have to do for each one twice. We're going to have to do one for the left and one for the right. Okay, so to do parametric constraints, all we do is we go to the corridor, go to the corridor creation tools or the hammer tool. We slide down to the big question mark, which is the create parametric constraint. And with this one, I'm going to look back at my manual, and we want to start at the start of the alignment and go to 68 plus 70. So we're going to lock to start, and then we're going to go down to 68 plus 70. We'll do the guardrail widening width on the right side first. We're going to have a start value of 0 and an end value of 0. Once you have that set, we're going to go ahead and left click to accept all those values, and you should see your guardrail widening width narrow. If I look down here at the beginning of the model, you can see that happening, and same thing in your plan view. We're going to do the same thing on the left side. So we need to find that left guardrail widening width. Again, it's always going to put in the default values from the template. We're going to set those both to 0 as well. Okay. Now the next parametric constraint that it wants us to set, if we go back to the manual, we're going to be putting in that taper from a 0 to a 7 foot wide. And so we're going to go from 6870 to 69. We'll go ahead and do the left side. Again, we're going to go from a 0 to a -7. We're going to go ahead and accept all those. You can see how it's popping out in our model right there. That's what we're looking for. Now we're going to do the right side. Again, we're going to go from 0 to 7. Our station values are still locked in. Now if I look back at the manual, our next one's going to go from that 7 foot wide back to the default width, and then that width is going to run behind the guardrail that's going to be placed out there. That's the minimum width for a guardrail. And so we're going to go ahead and go back and set that. We're going to do the right side this time. We're going to unlock the start. We're going to put that at 69 plus 0, 0. I believe we're going to go 30 feet. Yep, 69 plus 30. So we'll go ahead and type that in there. We're going to do the right side. We're going to go from that 7 foot down to the standard default from the template. And you can see that here in the model and also in the plan view. We're going to do the left side. Our station values still look good. And there we go. We've adjusted our guardrail widening width. So now that we can go in there and we can place our guardrail in that area. Okay. So let's look back at the manual. Step 19 we kind of did earlier, where we turned on we turned off the 2D view in our 3D model, but we turned off in our 2D view, we turned off the 3D model because sometimes it can get very cluttered in there, and I'll show you how cluttered it can get. So here's our references, here's our 3D model, this one right here, and I'm going to go ahead and slide this down. But if we turn that back on, you can see how cluttered the 2D view can get. So I'm going to hit F4, and what we're going to be doing is we're going to be selecting certain lines, and it's very hard to select those lines if that model is turned on. So if you still have your model turned on in the 2D view, go ahead and go to your reference dialog and turn off that corridors default 3D. Just turn it off, don't detach it, and we'll close that down. So that concludes this video. And the next video we're actually going to be laying some guardrail out and seeing the guardrail in our 3D model.